Добрый день, уважаемые спикеры.
Good afternoon, distinguished speakers, distinguished audience. We are starting our session dedicated to the topic, do we need a pharmacy? We have Yevgeni Nifantiev, Deputy of the State Duma of Federal Assembly of Russian Federation, Sergey Belyakov, Managing Director of Ozon, Alexander Filippov, CEO of Rigla and chairman of RAS, incorporating 18,000 pharmacies. And we also have Anton Buzdalin, founder and vice president for strategy of Sber Eapteka. So the question is, do pharmacies have any future? Do we need pharmacies? And we have the speakers to help us find answer to this question, to understand what format the pharmacy will have in future, how it will be transformed, and do we have to transform its format. In our country, we have more than 100,000 pharmacies. And since we have such a big pharmacy chain, it makes it possible for us to find a pharmacy right around the corner with a wide range of medicinal products available and with a knowledgeable pharmacist able to give us advice. Of course, we can argue about the optimal quantity of pharmacies per capita, but don't forget one thing. The availability of a large number of pharmacies, first of all, ensures price competition. So we have both more expensive and discounter pharmacies, loyalty cards, and individual approach to every visitor. In the COVID-19 pandemic times, when the population of Russia visited less the outpatient clinics and doctors, who became the gathering place number one? Pharmacy. Pharmacy became a place where you can not only buy any medication, but also get any necessary pharmaceutical advice. The pharmacy started working in a new format 18 months ago. Now we have remote online sales of medicinal products. Let me tell you a few figures we got from Roszdravnadzor. More than 30,000 websites were processed, 10,610 websites were blocked. 780 participants applied for remote sales. Some of them got permission. More than 50,000 pharmacies work on their own or with aggregators. Permissions for remote medicinal product sales have been issued in 50 Russian regions. 1,400 rubles is the average ticket. People buy 3 to 5 packs of medicinal products. In 27 Russian regions, the drugs are delivered only by the pharmacies, courier services. In other regions, courier services for drugs delivery are outsourced. Yevgeni Nifantiev, I would like to ask the first question to you. You are a member of parliament and you have a higher pharmaceutical education degree and you have a huge experience of working in a big pharmacy chain. How do you think the development of pharmacies change should be structured in order to both meet the state's interests, the interests of the health system and of the patient? What do you think about it?
Можно я, Олесь, вначале выражу слова благодарности?
First, let me thank the organizers for bringing up this important topic.
Даже название.
Because even the title of our session, Do We Need Pharmacies? It's a provocative question, but yet it attracts attention and desire to participate in this discussion. So let's
От очевидного, логически, дальше к ответу.
let's go from the obvious to the less obvious aspects. The health system, this is the most important function of the state to safeguard its population's health, right? Right. Can the system work without pharmacies? The obvious answer is no. How many medicinal products are reaching patients via pharmacies? More than 2/3 of medicinal products are issued or sold via pharmacies in Russian Federation. The question is, who else, if not pharmacies, who else can
Бесперебойно, качественно, эффективно.
supply medicinal products and perform this most important national function,
А вот, ну,
not just on paper, but physically perform this function?
четкое, понятное, сложившееся.
Currently, we have a very clear-cut, understandable, long-standing chain. It's manufacturer, physician, pharmacy, patient. Let's take an example. March 2020, when COVID-19 appeared.
Вирусная инфекция, она была никому
This viral infection was not known at that time. Nobody could understand it. Nobody knew how long the pandemic will last.
в нашей стране
And how did our country manage to
пандемии. Понятно, что за счет
survive in the first wave of the pandemic? Of course, due to the health system, due to the physicians who were in the front flanks, and also due to the pharmacists meeting patients in the pharmacies. So,
в марте 2020
where today and where in March 2020 we had a strategic stock of medicinal products.
в большой разветвленной
It was in a large, very large pharmacy network counting more than 70,000 pharmacies around the country. And this is the safety. This is the safety pad. In case of any viral or bacterial infection,
Действительно, самые большие запасы это такой
because this stock,
лекарственный Росрезерв.
it's like a state reserve of medicinal products. It's the biggest one. And the question is, does this industry differ
Посмотрим.
somehow seriously from other
Мы видели
trade
всплеск инфляции в нашей стране.
sectors?
Причинам она
Yes, we had high inflation.
за границей за счет
Inflation came from other countries as well due to
импортного производства и также
imported goods, plus the prices went up for raw materials for many products. And let's come to the
ноябрь 2020
drug provision. As of November 2021, based on DSM Group data,
необходимые важнейшие лекарства
the growth of prices,
2,1%.
the growth of price, the change of prices for medicinal products, most important ones, being part of the vitally important drugs, was minus 2.5%. And considering that it's about 40% of the whole range of medicinal products sold in pharmacies, 60% are drugs not in the list of essential drugs. Can any other industry boast such figures?
Товара больше 60%.
Can any other industry show that more than 60% of the volume traded are drugs made in other countries. And our retail industry, it combines both the freedom of entrepreneurship with a large number of SMEs. More than 1/3 of all the players are SMEs. We also have large networks. We have also players from other associated industries. And at the same time, the industry has a very strict price regulation by the state, which makes it possible to curb down the prices in case of growth. And we see that the price growth is minimal. And if you take March 2020, when there was a very high workload in pharmacies, we never saw empty shelves in pharmacies like we saw them in the food stores, even though the Ministry of Trade solved that problem as well. But in pharmacies, we never saw empty shelves. So, when the industry works efficiently, works really well, and serves our citizens, everyone thinks, okay, do we need it? Not really. But you know, there is a wise saying of Kazma Prutkov: when we have something, we don't cherish it. When we lose it, then we cry. So it always makes sense to look forward. And if you want to abolish something, think about the consequences for the industry and for the whole health system. So answering your question, let me say again, we have a very well-organized system of medicinal products provision. It works really well, and even remote sales of over-the-counter drugs, you have to be careful with it. There are certain limitations. Some of our colleagues are involved in this work, and they work efficiently. But if we take remote sales of prescription drugs, of course, you have to be more careful here in taking decisions, because it's not over-the-counter drugs. It's about prescription drugs. So first you need to implement a system of e-prescriptions. And to my mind, to the mind of a person who's worked so many years in this industry and in the Roszdravnadzor, let me tell you, it's very important that we have a guarantee that we are sure that the medicinal product will be transported in the right media, in the right climatic conditions, temperature conditions, and so on. So I mean that transportation by specialized transport, I'm talking about prescription drugs. All this should be complied with, and the courier should also be a specially trained one, so that we are sure that pizza is not transported next to immunoglobulin vial, which has to be kept at a strict temperature range, 2 to 8 degrees, and so on. Because the consequences of a mix-up or improper transportation can be fatal. Another thing, important thing to mention, why many players from neighbor industries wanted to sell medicinal products. They got permission to sell over-the-counter drugs, but yet they do not have a big business in this context. If you take Ozon, for instance, they really lowered the prices for books. Yes, they are now more affordable. Wild berries lowered prices for clothes. But you can't do the same with the medicinal products because initially and by definition, this is a low margin business with very high competition plus state regulation of sales. And now, considering the current context, the current pandemic, when the state is trying to regulate prices even for foodstuffs, of course it would be good if we pay more attention at the way it is being organized in the retail pharmacy industry.
You, as the representative of the legislative branch, what do you think? Do we need any additions to the legislation in order the pharmacy could get its second life? Because it's not a secret for anybody that profitability of pharmacy chains is dropping due to rent payments and reduction of retail markups and even due to acquiring. What do you think? What steps should be taken now, and if any, in the legislation to provide social protection of our pharmacies? Well, pharmacies, even amid such difficult conditions, they still survive with not very high profitability. For example, the net profit is around 1% in the market on average. Well, it's like balancing on the edge. Well, but we have to understand that pharmacies live amid very high limitations also in terms of their assortment. Pharmacies, like colleagues from adjacent industries, are not able to trade with all goods. They can trade only with the goods which is included in the list of allowed goods in retail. In retail chains. If we want to further hold price growth for medicine and medical goods, and even have some reduction of these prices, it would be good to give an opportunity to pharmacies to sell a little bit extended assortment, at least of goods which are directly related to healthcare, like diabetic food could be offered in pharmacies, special water, bottled water, not only mineral water. Okay, Sergey, please. Ozon, company Ozon, is a new member, a newcomer in the pharmaceutical market. And you are a very active driver of promoting new technologies, including distant sales, remote sales. Could you tell us more about your experiment to deliver prescription drugs? I know that you have this pilot now in Moscow region and in Belgorod region. Don't you think that marketplace's participation in the pilot you are conducting, would additional risks probably appear as a result of this pilot? Thanks for your characteristics that Ozon is now part of the pharmaceutical family. It's a great honor for us and a big responsibility. We have both bad news and good news. We declared this pilot and we hope it will start soon. And what is also important, I'm not going to oppose Yevgeni, but I will support him in practically all messages he mentioned. Medical products is a unique category due to the fact that they can bring not only benefit but also could harm if they would not be only stored in the wrong way, but also in case of wrong prescription, wrong control over the medicine turnover, and in the end it would mean that the set of requirements the organizations pretending to sell those goods should comply is significantly different from the requirements provided to other products, either food products or non-food product lines. So I think any company pretending for having the right to sell should comply with these requirements. First, the control of procurement, and even more radical, as might think, no question about prescription. This is a must, no discussion here, but also over-the-counter medicines. This is an absolute requirement for storage before delivery, absolute requirement to provide a proper temperature regime during delivery, and absolutely agree that logistics and delivery here is not only cars, thermal containers, but the courier. And this is already the responsibility of the marketplace providing these delivery services. And of course, identification of the end user. When we should avoid the situation when it's prescribed to one person and it's been accepted by a different person. We can make this focus, and a number of companies who are represented here in this session know how to do it. Second thing, which is also important and should be noted, I already mentioned uniqueness, but there are also requirements, compulsory requirements by legislation, different laws and acts describing the behavior of companies while selling different kinds of goods. And so if we really want to get this right, we should abide by these rules and requirements. Would it mean that risks related to marketplace participation in this service would grow? And short answer, no, because the state has the control instrument over those who have those rights. These are controlling bodies, legislative requirements you should comply with. If you don't comply, you lose the license and you get finalized. And also some violations should be controlled in the operations of pharmacies. The state should react quickly. If it reacts quickly, it means the reaction would be also quick. The reaction will also quick from other players of the market. This answer is not very pleasant for me, taking into account what company we are representing here, but we should be very fair in this discussion. We can't do without it. A newcomer, a new participant comes up to the market, and the regulator doesn't know him, and we should be moving here very careful not to discredit other participants of the market and not to discredit the whole market. But this is possible and can be done. The question about the will of market players, not only to take over the responsibility and also to invest in the compliance, invest in licensing, invest in necessary infrastructure and equipment. And also, there should be dialogue with the state, with the government, and legislative and law enforcement practice. A little bit more about our experiment. We already mentioned today as this form as e-prescription. In those three regions you mentioned, Moscow region, Belgorod region, we get 450,000 e-prescriptions a month. And if the state strategy in providing medical help and developing healthcare is deliberately envisages developing telemedicine, part of which is e-prescription, of course we should move towards electronic prescriptions and also delivery of over-the-counter medicines remotely. But these are very important elements of developing telemedicine. And summing up, let's come back to the name of our session. Would it be a hit on pharmacies? Of course not. It won't be this impact. No one, I hope, would think that marketplaces, electronic delivery channels of prescription and non-prescription medicines would somehow replace the existence of pharmacies and would question the existence of pharmacies. It didn't happen in offline retail, not only in Russia, nowhere over in the world where the e-commerce share is higher, still they have offline retail, and pharmacies are not endangered at all, because this is a very important infrastructure for such important thing as medicine delivery. We don't see such risks in the Russian Federation either. But if the telemedicine providing availability of medical assistance be developed, so the additional distribution channels of medical products and prescription products is a good step. This is a step in the right direction. There's a very good legislative experimental mode which requires accompanying laws to be adopted. And I really hope that the experiment you mentioned would happen, would fly, and it would allow to get a very good trial of these newcomers in the pharmacy market, and it would safeguard us against risks and problems at this stage. Please believe me, we are absolutely not interested in that, and we are ready to take more responsibilities and commitments in order to regulate the proper delivery procedure to those who are in need. Sergey, I'd like to rephrase a little bit. Is the pharmacy needed? No. Online retail is enough. So, is the hospital needed? No. Telemedicine is enough. No, I didn't say so. No, it's not like that. We pharmaceutical are afraid that everything will be reduced to this. No, you're interpreting it not in the right way. You, as a moderator, would like to exacerbate this discussion, and thank for that. But the pharmacy is needed. That's the answer. And when I say, and when I mention the example when e-commerce didn't replace offline retail, and nowhere else distant delivery of online pharmacies could replace offline pharmacies, and I definitely give the answer, yes, the pharmacy is needed, and I mean under pharmacy the classical form of a pharmacy. The colleague is heading the network. Thank you very much for the high quality of services, but 18,000 pharmacies, what are you talking about? Of course the pharmacy is needed. Thanks for your answer. Anton, you are the new player in the pharmaceutical market, and you act as a locomotive. You are the driver of promoting online delivery of prescription medicines. Could you tell us, those 1.5 years, amid the new conditions we've been living with the distant trade, please compare your expectations before and after. What's the difference? Were there any expected results in your activity? So you have the floor, please. Thank you very much. About the new player in the market, we've been dealing with pharmacies for more than 10 years. Before building the pharmacy, Eapteka, we did a very big chain number 2 in the country, which is now merged with 36.6 chain. And 1.5 years ago, we started to build a new chain, which is now part of Sber system. Of course, the pharmacy is needed, and it's very good when business discusses business needs, the needs of the industry. But the question, on my opinion, should be put in a slightly different way. What is the need of the client? Does the client in the COVID situation, when the majority of elderly population is in lockdown, do they need deliveries, home deliveries of pharmacies? So in my opinion, it's a huge demand. And the fact is that in our country, we introduced the opportunity to deliver over-the-counter goods last year and the year before. And this year, we hope the pilot will be introduced for delivery of prescription drugs. It will really help to keep the health of our people, because the pharmacy is, of course, needed. A pharmaceutical specialist is needed. A pharmacist is needed. But is the pharmacist able, after 10 years he graduated from university, memorize thousands of names of articles and their cross-sections and combinations without digital tools? I think the answer is no. He's not able. and fierce competition. When in one house there are several pharmacies, it's not about prices. Prices are kept by the special list, but the pharmacies see shrinking profit, and they have to do something about their revenue. The market is growing, if we look at statistics, from 20 to 27%, because pharmacies have to survive. The business is growing, they increase their shares, and the pressure over the customer is growing. This is a positive trend. But first, I believe that from the legislation point of view, developing the thought of Yevgeni, that in pharmacies, they can sell only pharmacy goods, and in e-pharmacies also only e-goods could be sold, all pharmacy goods can be sold. But if you get a license for delivering to the marketplace, you can sell not only drugs but also non-medical goods or goods without medical properties at all. But we should move two directions in parallel. First, we should liberalize digitalization of healthcare, because this is the best driver and improving the quality of life, reducing mortality. But also we should go to the way of improving the safety. We need to spread this law on the internet trade about turnover of medicine goods. And, of course, electronic turnover. More than 15 regions introduced electronic prescription. Electronic prescription works in many countries, in many regions, and it works perfectly because it has Ministry of Healthcare, which is the target client, and it works perfectly. All subsidies are provided by prescriptions, and it's absolutely transparent. 10 years ago, Mosable Pharmacy, which was belonging to our company, they got PCs for subsidiaries and just another computer for non-prescription goods. We should improve the control over the prescription goods, because in our country this control is very low and very high control when delivering home. However, no one thinks that all goods from pharmacies could be delivered home. No, they are all coming to home, but normally couriers are relatives, the patients, husbands with the full list of different goods. These are the same couriers, but non-professional couriers. And indeed, now there is delivery. We need just to develop it in the framework of experimental and pilot projects. And as it is done in many countries, the delivery is allowed, and we need to move this direction, and as soon as possible.
Because with each new wave, we see the number of people falling ill with COVID-19 is increasing. Now everyone's getting ready for the Omicron invasion. Now it's the right time to at least launch some pilot projects to test how the system works, so that people who are now trying to limit their visits to food stores, to hospitals, to outpatient clinics, they could have access to drugs. Because now with the electronic prescription, the control over the issuance of prescription drugs in the pharmacies will be stricter, but we need to have a system, a working system, issuing electronic prescriptions. Plus, don't forget about special categories of patients. We know that the list of prescription drugs is renewed and revised very rarely. It includes medicinal products having a lot of side effects, and this list, it's a very rigid list, and there is a very special, strict procedure of revision of this list. And at least secondary prescriptions should be available based on telemedical visits. And of course, the drug should be delivered from a drugstore, from an online pharmacy, not from the food store, right? And this will improve the quality of life. That's why, to sum it up, we do need pharmacies. We need to accelerate lawmaking in this aspect. We need to make all the drugs available for online sales. We need to further develop the industry, extrapolating the principles of its work to all pharmacies, and I'm sure Yevgeni will support me, and Alexander, who is the CEO of Rigla network. That's all I wanted to say. I represent the Association of SPFO. It's a union of professional pharmaceutical organizations. We always participated in development of laws and regulations for pharmaceuticals trade, and our organization, are sure that here it's not about solving the problem of delivery of drugs to remote regions. It's just to make it more convenient. We want to make delivery of drugs more convenient. What do you think? What's top priority now? Currently, our top priority is combating COVID-19. Remote regions, they are at higher risk, and the pharmacy is a dangerous place to go to now. Because now, if you need any prescription drugs, you have to go to the pharmacy. And it means that people being infected, they go to a pharmacy if you feel a fever or whatever, and you can infect other people. So I think that's important also in remote regions. And in terms of supply of medicinal products to very remote towns and villages, we have a project jointly with the mail delivery system. We are improving the quality of delivery every day, and the quality of service, the range of medicinal products available for delivery is increasing. And now we have the system available for delivery of over-the-counter drugs and food additives. The postmen deliver them, and when we extend the system to also prescription drugs, then it will become possible to deliver prescription drugs to the most remote villages in our country without any problem. We have delivery in 57 regions of this country, and the range of medicinal products available in Moscow is now available practically in all these regions, and everywhere we have delivery of drugs available the same day you order them. And we are improving the system every day. All these projects are now being rolled out successfully. And of course, a law on the delivery of over-the-counter drugs with further regulations of delivery of prescription drugs is what we really need now. In other cities, the prices are lower than in other regions, where at the same time the prices for the population, for the prices of the drugs are higher because the competition is lower. We need to increase competition to lower the prices, because we will have the same price on the websites of the major delivery systems. Let me add something to this discussion so that we don't fight here between online and offline systems. I think you are right, saying that we should not idealize the effect, the impact of the online delivery of medicinal products, because this is a supplementary service and the users, they might choose to use it or not. The specifics of this marketplace is that they do not have the high cost for supporting the infrastructure. Whether you use this infrastructure or not, whether you click on that or on this or that drug or not, in any case, our costs are minimal. We deliver the drugs to a network of pharmacies. And Anton, sorry for being harsh, but I don't think it's good to protect one business explaining to people that it's dangerous to use another business. You know, I visit pharmacies in different places, and pharmacies are doing their best to exclude people infecting other people and to prevent virus infecting people. So it's wrong to blame them for the virus propagation. And I think it's a dangerous way to do business if we try to promote our business, saying that another business is dangerous or non-conforming. In any case, pharmacies, they work based on rules and requirements. If you have anything to say, you can complain, but you should not blame all the pharmacies for spreading the COVID-19 virus. No, I just think that either you comply with the rules or not. If you do comply, you should be able to work normally. Talking about big cities, if you take, for instance, Moscow, anyone who has a confirmed COVID-19 receives free of charge the medicinal products he or she needs from the doctor. Number two, starting from 2019, we have a very good volunteers network with a lot of people involved in this work, and I'm the coordinator of the regional volunteers partner center of United Russia Party, and I can tell you that we have more people willing to be a volunteer than those who need help of volunteers. Of course, now, if the pandemic aggravates, we may need many more volunteers, but I can assure you that anyone who will call the volunteer center and ask to go and fetch the necessary drugs from the pharmacy, the volunteers will never charge a penny for the delivery. They will go and fetch the medications for the patient. Plus, we have doctors' offices, even in remote towns and villages. And we have been negotiating with the regulators for a long time. And as a result, now you don't need to have a supplementary license for pharmaceutical license in those remote regions where you do not have pharmacies, but you have doctors.
Alexander Pavlovich,
Alexander, what about you? Let's talk about classical pharmacy. Rigla is one of the major offline pharmacy chains in Russia. I would like you to focus, if possible, on the pharmacist who we did not discuss yet. That's right. Of course, it makes no sense to argue that we need to digitalize this business. It's evident. And first of all, let me give you some figures. They are actual figures. We got them just a day ago. In our network, every month about 11 million sales are closed, and our statistics are 81% of buyers buy only in offline pharmacies, and they never buy online. 4% of our buyers buy only online, and 16%, they live both offline and online. In pharmaceutical retail sales, the share of visitors 45 years and elder is higher than on the average in retail. The share of young people making purchases online is smaller, but with age, they go more offline. Do we need remote sales and delivery? Of course we do, because it's evident. If a person cannot go to the pharmacy, it's better to deliver the drug to the person than see that the person will not be able to take a drug. Ipsos gives us the following figures. Over the past year, the share of people who never visited a doctor last year increased from 41 to 48%. Now imagine the role of the pharmacist and drugs provision pharmacist, who has to consult patients coming to the pharmacy. The share of those who, based on their study, the share of people, there is a large share of those who perceive as one of the most important roles of the pharmacy the consultative role of pharmacy. It's a big share. And that's a very important element of our current reality. If you can go to pharmacy, let you go. If you can visit a doctor, why not? But if a person cannot go to the pharmacy or to see a doctor, let telemedicine help, let drug delivery help. And now pharmacists. Looking at the attitude to the pharmacists, no, we don't need pharmacies, because the average salary of a pharmacist in Europe is $40,000 to $60,000 a year. In the United States, a pharmacist can earn up to $100,000 to $120,000 per year, because the education is expensive, and this is the industry which helps people. Our pharmacy business cannot pay even $1,000 per month to our pharmacists. But that's a shame. That's a shame. If we do not support the status of pharmacist as an important person, they are now getting less than the couriers. This isn't the way to preserve pharmacies. The pharmacies will die out on their own, because we will have no pharmacists to work in these pharmacies. If there is no provision officer, if there is no pharmacist, there'll be no pharmacies. If we have no doctors, we'll have no clinics.
And why so? The economics of a pharmacy does not allow to pay pharmacists a decent salary and normal salary. That's why, if we want to, and if we really understand that we do need pharmacists, first and foremost, we need to increase the level of profitability of those pharmacies to make it possible for the pharmacy to provide a proper salary for the pharmacist in charge. And let's see what is wrong with our economy. We already said that the pharmacy is not able to increase markups endlessly on the living significant drugs. Well, but the acquiring rate in big chains, retail sales, the whole statistics is there. We requested data from two big banks. I'm not going to mention them. It's around 0.6, 0.8% is acquiring. And in pharmacies is 1.4 or 1.6. At the same time, we want to say that the pharmacy is a socially significant enterprise and it is really needed. But who needs it? Our tries to get an agreement with MasterCard, with Visa, with banking community didn't work out. That's why, if someone can hear us, please help us to solve this issue. The second story, which is also important, is related to the modern marketplaces. And I believe that we need to change the legislation. And I resort to Yevgeni Olegovich here. We need to provide change in the assortment of pharmacies, prohibiting, for a very simple example, the ban to sell drink potable water. Well, we shouldn't discuss it at all. It shouldn't be only Borjomi or other mineral water, but just water, which should be accompanied with drugs. This pharmacy should become a place where we will develop and promote a good attitude to a healthy lifestyle and health. And not only pharmacies and drugs, but also the drug supplements, food for diabetics, many other things. We should move from the allowed assortment to the limitation of the prohibited assortment, like that. So we should ban something like, paints. We should ban pain in pharmacies. But why can't we sell healthy footwear or medical footwear in pharmacies? Why not? That's why I like to use this opportunity to speak out and to say that pharmacies need help. A pharmacist in charge are key people there, and the assortment which needs to be offered in pharmacies should be around healthy lifestyle, and that not only means drugs and medicine. Thank you very much for your position. Dear colleagues, we have just a few more minutes. Very quickly, let's have a look and learn your vision for the nearest future of pharmacy development, 10 years, 15 years from now. What is ahead of us? What pharmacy will look like in the nearest future? Yevgeni Olegovich, what do you think? You know, I sincerely hope that pharmacy will stay the place where a patient could come for help, for real pharmaceutical consulting, because there's only a specialist at the counter, either with the secondary education, a pharmacist, or a higher education, a higher pharmaceutical education, is a pharmacist in charge. So, very briefly, I have to tell you, that's a big trouble if we as a state will be thinking about that the specialization is not important and professionals are not needed, and any organization can take any area and be professionally working in it. Such approach will inevitably result in the fact that we will destroy professionals, destroy experts at all. And I'm sure that any progress, any moving forward is possible only due to professionals and experts. And this is, and it is very important in terms of our today's discussion. Use different initiatives not to harm, not to kill the profession of the pharmacist, because this profession lives many years, many hundreds of years. It's socially significant. There are higher educational institutions for pharmacists, and it's very important to make sure that pharmacy stays a pharmacy in 10 years, in 20 years from now, where a pharmacist can give a proper consulting in a way of, remote channels as an opportunity, or physically or personally. It's a second issue. Without repeating, I think pharmacy should be perceived by us not like just a place. There will be a place, just don't care about it. Just don't worry. But as a high-quality service, supported by proper talented specialists. What I do afraid, but different processes happening in different areas. So market concentration around the shrinking number of players due to not very good economic situation in our economics, not of profits, but the economy of expenses. And this situation would result in the fact that the number of pharmacy chains, number of pharmacy points will not be just shrinking, but shrinking rapidly. But that's going to be a really severe impact. And we really want to avoid that and not let it happen. And we need to take into account all aspects of those risks discussed here: investment in talent, preparation in salaries. I do agree with that, but I'm afraid this is a fixed trend, and I'm afraid that in a few years from now we would sit here in the same room and state that our negative forecast come true. And in that case, we won't be answering the question, is the pharmacy needed? But there will be a question, how can we deliver medical goods to our population? And we should find out this way. But we should avoid this. Thank you. Anton, I agree with Alexander about the salaries of pharmacists. And in the nearest 10 years, there should be new norms adopted to limit competition of pharmacists, as it is done in Europe. In this case, pharmacists can provide more consulting and get higher salaries. Secondly, it should be prohibited to set the plan of sales, which is adopted on all pharmaceutical chains, plans on focus plans, high profitable positions, which pharmacists are taught in big training centers, absolutely not available. And but there's no other way how pharmacies could survive. They should be like that. And in 10 years, we expect the significant growth of delivery, especially for those who really needs that, who really needs those services, for those who is restricted in mobilities, low mobility groups of population. And God beware that pandemic would last longer, and these problems will just be aggravating. We hope that, and we expect that there will be more digitalization based on American or European model, and the majority of producers segment will be reduced, and prices will be significantly going down, because now the power is in the hands of the producers and pharmacists. As soon as there's no need to select between similars and generics, the prices would drop, and the insurance medicine allows to let it happen. As we may see in the subsidized medicine, it's just means state insurance. And I hope those vectors, those areas would allow to significantly improve and balance out the whole market only because of digitalization. So our task as an industry, as a representative of socially significant industry, to promote digitalization and not to put it on hold, and not be afraid that it would hit big chains. It would only help and support in all aspects, in diagnostics, in drug supply, and in the improvement of the quality of life of our people. And your final word, please. According to Ipsos, 15% of our population diagnosed their diseases on their own. They prescribe medicine on their own, and this is the worst which we could see. We see the loss of trust to a doctor, to a pharmacist in charge, and this is absolutely a wrong story. In order to ask what pharmacy will look like, we should ask the population which uses those pharmacies. They would determine what pharmacy should be, what kind of services they want to get, what should be the digitalization level, what kind of delivery should be. Our client will determine our future. Thank you.
Thank you, dear colleagues, for such a very frank discussion. It was an interesting discussion, harsh at times, but thank you. Thank you. It was great.